Welcome to Gay Fairfax, the capital area's only weekly gay entertainment magazine featuring news, views, and pride. I'm Beth Goodman.
And I'm Dave Hughes. Each week, we'll feature events and personalities of interest to the gay women and men of Northern Virginia.
This week's special guests include Greg Greeley, the Air Force captain who led the 1991 Gay Pride Day Parade and made front-page news in the Washington Post Metro section the very next day.
And we'll also hear from the D.C. Feminist Chorus as they celebrate womanhood at this year's Gay Pride Day festivities.
But first, here's Peg McCraw with this week's gay trivia question.
Her first book was a book of poetry. Her first novel was published in 1973. She's known for her eccentric and memorable characters such as Blue Rhonda and Banana May. Who is this talented and popular gay female novelist? Don't go away. I'll be back with the answer.
Thank you, Peg. Greg Greeley will certainly be remembered by this area's gay and lesbian community for his courageous coming out at the 1991 Gay Pride Day festivities.
Greg, a captain in the United States Air Force, kicked off this year's events as one of the flag bearers at the start of the parade. The next day, Greg faced the ordeal of trying to obtain his honorable discharge from the service.
Gay Fairfax correspondent and co-anchor Michelle Michaels spoke with Greg recently about the problems facing gay men and women in the armed services.
Hi, I'm reading from the Washington Post Metro section the day after this year's Gay Pride Day. First paragraph. Air Force Captain Greg Greeley ends his 4-year stint with the military today. But he said yesterday was his day of true liberation as he carried the lead banner for the 1991 Lesbian and Gay Pride Parade. When did you first see this article and what happened?
Well, to be honest, I didn't expect to see that article at all. On Sunday during Gay Pride Day, a friend of mine asked me if I would mind speaking to a reporter from the Post. He was in charge of media relations for Pride, and I thought about it a bit, and I decided that the Post probably wouldn't cover it, and even if they covered it, they probably would bury it somewhere in the Metro section on page D10, and even if they did cover it, they probably wouldn't mention my name at all. So I talked to the Post reporter for about 15 minutes and didn't think too much about it. The next day, I was in uniform, and I was getting on the bus to go into the Pentagon for my last day of work, and I had picked up a Post just to see how they finally did cover it. For the first time in my life, I actually dropped the paper. I didn't expect to see it on the front of the Metro section, and I didn't expect to see my name at the front of the article.
They talk about you a lot in this article.
Yeah, I was very surprised by that. I had a faint hope that no one in the Pentagon would be reading the Post that day. I was wrong. When I walked into the office, I had to walk past my colonel's office, and there were 5 people in there busy Xeroxing the paper already. Fortunately, they wanted my discharge to proceed as normal. The chain of command that I worked for was very supportive. Unfortunately, the people in charge of security, the Air Force's Office of Special Investigation, and I believe some high-level people in the Air Force and the Pentagon wanted to pursue the case further. They wanted to haul me in, interrogate me, investigate what's happened, and that's the part that scared me.
So what happened?
Well, by 9:30 that morning, I was called in, and I was told that my discharge, which was scheduled for that day, was put on indefinite hold. And by that afternoon, I was over at Bolling Air Force Base with the Air Force's Office of Special Investigations, and they basically interrogated me for half a day there. They claimed the reason they brought me in was because they were concerned there was a possible compromise of classified information. In reality, when I got there, only a few of the questions centered on classified information. Most of the questions centered on getting me to admit that I was gay and getting me to give them names of other people in the service who were gay. And the whole process was, filled with intimidation and outright lies. They claimed that if I gave them names that, the people who I named would never know that I was the one who gave the names. They said the people who I named would be brought in and briefed that they were a potential target for hostile intelligence agencies, when in fact what would happen is they'd be hauled in, they'd be interrogated, and then be kicked out of the service. So the tactics that they use border on criminal, and how they treat people, especially gays, who they're trying to discharge out of the service. It's not a clean, easy process where you get a nice piece of paper and we say, well, you're gay, so we can't let you serve. For a majority of the people who are gay in the service and are being discharged, they have to go through this entire process. They have to be humiliated, they have to be interrogated, and then when they're finally booted out of the service, there's not much left to their lives.
Do they get benefits? Are they taken? Is that taken away also?
It depends on the characterization of the discharge. Fortunately, these days, there are more gays who are getting honorable discharges than in the past.
With full benefits?
Correct. In the past, they could routinely give you a dishonorable discharge solely because you were gay. Now, they have to prove that there are some mitigating circumstances to give you a discharge that's not honorable. And they work very hard to prove that. That's one of the reasons they put people through these kind of interrogations, is they're looking for anything else they can get a hold of to deny you an honorable discharge.
You were working in the Pentagon, you're surrounded by military people. What did your peers think when this came?
That was probably the best part about this whole process, is I never thought to come out to all these people in the service. And the main reason is I didn't think they'd be very accepting. What I found is that all the people that I worked with didn't care. And people were coming to my office for those days that I was still at the Pentagon saying, what can I do to help? You know, good luck. You know, we want to support you any way we can. I had an NCO that walked up to me, he shook my hands and said, sir, you've got balls. Mm-hmm. I even had a chief master sergeant who used to work with me. He's been in the Air Force 100 years. He called me up from Hawaii just to make sure everything was okay. And then said, well, it's about time the Air Force got into the 90s.
So do you think there's a movement in the military that's going to change this policy?
I don't think there's a question that the policy will change. It will. The question is when. Will it take us 1 year? Will it take us 2 years? Will it take us even 5 or 10? We just don't know at this point. But increasingly, the public is looking at this policy and saying, you know, not only is this not fair, it's stupid. It's stupid to be kicking these people out. It's unfair what the military is doing to these gays and lesbians who are discovered while they're in the service. And the military will eventually find that the public won't accept this policy. So it'll change. It's a question of when, and it's a question of whether the military will do it willingly or whether they'll be forced kicking and screaming like they were in 1947 to integrate blacks.
Right. Defense Secretary Dick Cheney has been he's the pivot man on this because he's being the head of defense, has to answer these questions. And he called it an old chestnut he inherited from the previous administration. What do you see as the political background to this right now?
Everything that I've heard from my friends who are still in the Pentagon is that Cheney himself really doesn't like this policy, and you could sort of tell that by the way he's backing away from it in public and the kind of comments he's making. I know in my case in particular, when they first pulled me in for interrogation, that was an Air Force issue, and the Air Force was handling it. By the next day, when it became a matter of public record, and there was a lot of negative publicity associated with what the Air Force was doing, Cheney was irritated. You know, he couldn't believe what the Air Force is doing, and I don't think he realizes that this is something they do routinely. I hope he can get that information someday and come to that realization. Unfortunately, even if Cheney wanted to change the policy, politically, I don't think he could. This is the kind of decision that the president has to make himself. And unfortunately, I don't think that President Bush is about to change the policy. The Democratic candidates who are running for election next year, all of them except Wilder have come out and said that they would change this policy. So, if we elect a Democrat in the next election, there's a good chance the policy will change. If Bush is reelected, it's still a big unknown.
If a military person is dishonorably discharged due to this issue, can they go back and appeal it?
There is an appeals process. In fact, there are a lot of veterans who were discharged in World War II, Korea, Vietnam era, who received discharges less than honorable because they were gay. And they can take that back to a review board now that the DoD policy has changed on discharges and have those upgraded to honorable. But it's not an easy process, and there's no guarantee that the discharge can be changed.
Mm-hmm. So how does this affect your life now? I mean, you're out of the military now. You got an honorable discharge.
Yes.
How does it affect where you work now and your life in general?
Actually, it had a positive effect on where I work. Had this not happened, I'd still be, sitting in my desk day in, day out, trying to decide who to come out to, how to come out to them, what should I say, how will they react. It's not an issue anymore. Everyone knows. And if they don't know, I assume someone's already told them. And I sort of enjoy having the role of being totally out at work. It's a 180-degree shift from where I was before, and it's a really refreshing shift.
Do you have any advice to people in the military now who are gay? That's what they should do.
There are still a lot of gays left in the military. My hope is that we'll be able to get the policy changed sooner rather than later, because the gays who are there are serving well, are serving honorably, and if they can stick it out, I hope they do.
Is it important that they still remain closeted? Is there any protection for them if they are known to be gay?
If they are out, and I guess you can call it the bureaucracy, if the bureaucracy finds out that they are gay, then they'll be kicked out. There are people in the service who are out to their peers or even their chain of command, but doing that always entails a risk. If someone is unhappy or someone hears a rumor or innuendo who is homophobic, your career is ruined instantly.
It's a heavy burden to deal with. So how was it having your picture in Time magazine? August '91, Captain Greg Greeley served as a Pentagon computer systems analyst, and it was determined, according to Time magazine, that your discharge was delayed to determine whether or not you were a security risk. Congressmen accused Pentagon of a witch hunt.
Mm-hmm. I was glad to see Time to do the article at all. The picture is sort of nice to have your picture in Time, but it's important that the mainstream press pick up this issue and make sure that the general public knows that the military still excludes homosexuals from service. Friends of mine who are not gay, a lot of them didn't realize that the fact that you are gay means you're going to be kicked out if they find out. So the more awareness we get in the general public that this is still the Pentagon's policy and the kind of actions they're taking against service members who are homosexual or lesbian, I think that'll help us win our case.
Well, Greg, it was really wonderful to meet you, and I'm glad to see that you've landed on your feet.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here at Gay Fairfax.
Having trouble finding our listing in the newspaper television section? Having trouble finding our time in the cable guide?
Well, for just $12 a year, you can become a member of the Fairfax Lesbian and Gay Citizens Association and get a complete listing of our upcoming programs, as well as the monthly newsletter.
Write to us at FLGCA, Post Office Box 2322, Springfield, Virginia 22152, or call us at area code 703-451-9528.
1991 Gay Pride Day audiences were treated to a concert by the D.C. Feminist Chorus, a group of women dedicated to celebrating our sisterhood in song. This year's program featured an unusual but beautiful Macedonian folk song. The group is also musically eloquent when making a political statement, as in the musical selection, "It's Nobody's Body But Mine."
So let's join the appreciative audience and enjoy the performance of the D.C. Feminist Chorus.
The sun will shine, the wind will blow, the rain will keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Keep on loving boldly. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna work for change together. Work for change together. Work for change together. Never turning back. Never turning back. We're gonna keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. Keep on walking forward. Never turning back. Never turning back.
No wonder the people who attended Gay Pride Day are still talking about the events.
Absolutely. I mean, we have to appreciate the dedication, musicianship, and pride of a group like the DC Feminist Chorus.
Well, have you thought about this week's gay trivia question? Here's Peg with the answer.
Now that was just too easy, wasn't it? Of course, it's Rita Mae Brown, and she lives right here in Virginia, in Charlottesville. Her first novel was Ruby Fruit Jungle. Her other works include Sudden Death, High Hearts, and Bingo. But my all-time personal favorite is 6 of 1. If you haven't read it, you really should.
That wraps up this week's edition of Gay Fairfax. Don't forget to tune us in next week at this time. For Gay Fairfax, I'm Dave Hughes.
And I'm Beth Goodman. Let's close with an encore by the DC Feminist Chorus. Thank you for joining us, and remember to keep the pride alive.
Over.